Hi, it's Doug DeVitri with the CoTrackPro podcast, and today we have a very special guest. It's Tina Huggins. Welcome, Tina.
Thank you for having me on.
Now you are known as the high conflict divorce specialist. Tell us
A
what
high
that is.
conflict divorce coach specialist. So that means I specialize in high conflict. All of the stuff nobody else wants to deal with, the hardest stuff, fighting, narcissism, abuse of just about every kind of abuse there is. So I specialize in high conflict.
Wow. And so I imagine that you work with all different types of personalities, right?
Yes, but all of my clients are abused in some form or another. And if you know anything about abuse, they all come with psychological abuse. So it doesn't matter whether it's financial abuse, legal abuse, it's the psychological abuse that's the problem.
Well, let's talk about that in a little bit more detail as far as what types of abuses there are, because I think many people think of just being physically abused. There's bruises or scars. That's not it.
Well, I come from a physical abusive relationship, and I'm also a fifth degree black belt. And I can tell you, one, I didn't even know I was in an abusive relationship. And then two, I was never worried about I mean, I didn't let the broken hand bother me, the separated ribs until the dislocated leg. Then I kind of was connecting dots. But it's the psychological abuse that's there that hurt me, and that's what caused the physical abuse. Is I would try to run from the screaming and the belittling that would take place and the alcohol consumption that was taking place. And so it was, like I said, it was that psychological abuse that was my issue, and that's what we see with all of my clients too.
Sure. And so this would be a toxic partner that maybe uses foul language. What are some other behaviors that are involved with that?
Well, in the case with, I mean, we have toxic and then we use the word narcissistic. And narcissistic is more of a coin word for mental conditions that cause abuse in people. And in the case where we see abuse, we're looking at yelling, screaming, throwing things. But we're looking even at financial abuse, maybe not letting her spend money or him, she is now taking all the money and hid it. We see things like kicking renters out of rentals, destroying rentals, allowing water to freeze up and break, and then not spending the money to fix them so that there's no income coming and making them look poor on their side, making my client at this point, a specific client that went through this, making him look like he wasn't doing what he was supposed to when the courts ordered her to do that. We'll see, my dad was shot at. He was run over with a dually pickup truck. Um, there is sexual abuse, and we normally see sexual abuse or imagine it as being forced sex, but a woman can withhold sex. And in one specific case, this woman didn't withhold sex. She didn't talk to her husband, and they had sex. And then the next morning, she forced him to go tell her children, their children, that he raped her because he didn't ask her if she wanted it. And so we see forms of abuse that people don't recognize as abuse quite often in my work.
Wow, that's really deep. And I imagine that you're in the business of helping your clients protect themselves, not just in one area, right? But it seems like there's many other areas of somebody's life that might be affected.
Yes. So if they come to me and they're thinking about getting divorced, they just don't know what they're going to do, which is the very best time. That's when I can help them the most, save them the most money, keep the most stress out of their lives. But so when they come to me, then we create an exit plan. And in that exit plan, we obviously have to have an emergency exit plan. And so we get all the important documents and everything out of the house so that they can't be destroyed. We don't tell our partner that we're thinking of divorce, that we're getting divorced. We plan everything out so that we get a day that we're going to leave. We have the moving trucks come in. We've already decided, we've taken money out of the bank account. And not because I want my clients to take all the money. That's not it at all. If they don't take it, their abusive partner will. They can always give it back. But these are the types of things that I help them set up. And during this whole time, we work on keeping things in status quo. We don't want any conflict because that's how I protect my clients. Also, it protects the abuser. And I know that why would we want to protect the abuser? If we protect the abuser from conflict, that's protecting the household. So if we have children, small children, teenage children, children of any age, then we don't have the conflict that's running around the house in the form of energy where people were screaming when the kids come in and now it's real tense. We protect that from day one.
Got it. I guess imagining children are witnessing this type of abuse, it just doesn't happen behind closed doors. What's the impact that it has on them as they start to observe some of this behavior?
There's all kinds of things. So what I tell people that are sitting in the abuse that haven't chose to get out and they keep thinking it's going to change and it's going to get better. Years down the road, they're still thinking this. Well, now these children that are sitting there, are they going to be abusers like the other partner? Are they going to be abused like my client is? So we are now allowing our children to see that as the norm, and that's the way they should act. So if the children are in the abuse, and now we're talking about experiencing it, but not learning to be this, then we've got the abuse that they're watching their parents go through, and we've got the inner abuse that's going on in the child. The child might be thinking that they're the problem, or how can they help? What can they do to prevent this and keep, mom or dad from being loud and getting mad at the other one. So we've got all kinds of stuff that goes on, and we can't, I mean, that list is, we would be here all day talking about it.
Well, it seems like, y- even what you said before, like you just didn't know was happening until you started to really like put some labels on it. How does this show up in custody battles?
In custody, this is what really happens in the aspect as you step forward. Is my client has been abused, they'll come to me with their heads down, shoulders forward. They don't talk loud. They're so shy in that aspect that they're so afraid of that abuse. As they start moving towards getting out of the relationship, they start setting boundaries and getting stronger. Well, this shows the courts that now they either are abusive too, or they are the abuser. And so this can cause problems as we head into custody. But as we move into custody aspects, the abuser, like I've got several cases right now where the abuser is saying that my client was the abuser and they want the kids because they got all of, this stuff. The kids are crying and they don't want to go back to their parent. And in the teenage custody that I'm dealing with, that parent is telling those children that in this case, the abuser is the father, but that father is telling those children that it's their mother's fault.
Mm.
And now the children believe that it's their mother's fault. And now they're being abusive to their mother.
Wow. So it seems like if you try to get protection, right, the other person could flip the script on you and say they're the one being abused, right? So how do people
Yes.
even, how do you put teeth into that, especially if you're in front of a judge for maybe a few minutes and they don't have any history but the notes that they're given.
Yeah. I have one mom that the abuser, the father in that case too, took those kids away from her. She hasn't seen her kids in 2 years. He got a restraining order on her, a fictitious one, and she didn't have a good lawyer to start with. And she just didn't know what to do, stuck her head in the sand for way too long and couldn't combat that. I have a father who hasn't seen his children in a year because she did the same thing to him. And we see this often. Now, if they come to me early on, we can prevent most of that from happening. We clean them up. We do what the courts call clean hands. We make sure that they're doing everything that they're supposed to do. They're following all the court orders and rules. In fact, they're going above and beyond to keep in that and making sure that even though their soon to be ex is not turning in their financials, they're getting them all turned in. They're doing everything they can, not just their side, but
Mhm.
even their partner's side. And then the courts see that as a good, especially in custody.
Wow. Um, there's a lot of things that are going on there that you
Right.
really have to play close attention to. What are some of the big mistakes that people make when they first start this process, or when they first realize that, you know what, there's nothing I can do that works.
It, when they first realize that, they've already been in the middle of it for way too long, months and months, or even years and years. It's kind of like back in my case, and I say it like, we are really nice to this lobster and we put it into nice cool water on the stove and then just slowly turn up that heat. And that's what happens. All of a sudden they wake up, their spouse is gone, their wife is gone, took the kids, and there's a restraining order waiting for them at the door when they answer it. It's this just happens. They think it happened overnight, but they're in this one specific case, the wife really had planned this out with her parents for months and months, if not maybe a whole year. And everything fell into place. She got him to do A, he did it. She got him to do B, he did it. Well, then C was her exit. And she left, and there was a restraining order.
Wow, it gets pretty serious pretty fast. What are some good or healthy ways to be able to cope with this type of ongoing thing? Because once the marriage is over, right, you still have to maintain a relationship with that parent.
Yes. And as long as they're a parent, you will have to, at least on the loose level. When I work with clients, in the co-parenting aspect, there's a part where you have co-parents, so they both parent the same in each house. My clients can't co-parent. So they do what we call parallel parent. So dad has one set of rules, mom has another set of rules, and that's the way we work through that. So coming through that, we want to make sure that we're taking care, in my client's case, there's lots of things that they need to do, just the basic, get good sleep, good food, and laugh. That's something huge. And make sure that you're talking to the right people about the right stuff. You want your friends and family to know what's going on, but you don't want to tire them with your garbage that you feel and all the pain and the yuck that's going on. That's where I come in. You can talk to me all day long about that kind of stuff. That's my job. I'm supposed to help clean up your emotion so we don't have it when you communicate with your soon to be ex and not with your attorney. Because we have an emotion with our attorney, well, then we just caused that whole 1 hour to be 2 hours an hour, $1,500 into the hole.
Wow, you just made me think of getting or not myself, but divorce insurance. Right?
That would
Where you
be
pay ahead
awesome.
of time and then Tina helps clean it up.
There's a concept for you.
What are some trends that you're seeing now that technology has really taken over people's lives, right? Where they're on social media, they're communicating, they're triggered from what's happening in society. How do you put a leash on that?
Well, you talked about the bad side. There's also a good side to it. But when all of this is going on, and I can tell you clear back in COVID, what the suggestion was is stop getting on social media. Shut your social media down, shut your phone down at night, put it in the other room, stay off of social media. Don't stalk your soon to be ex. Don't listen to stuff from other people that you shouldn't. And this is why I don't recommend you talk to your bestie about stuff, is your bestie's got your back, right? But the more you talk to your bestie, the more fuel gets thrown on that fire. And the more fuel on that fire, the bigger the problem is going to be as you move down the road. And we don't want that. We need to keep that fire down to nothing. If we can get it to be coals, that's where we want it.
Wow, so that's really interesting about sometimes how your friends might be triggers that help keep
Mhm.
you in that loop. Um, what are some technology tools that you're using when working with some of your clients? Um,
Well, I recommend that all of my clients use a parenting app. Usually we can get the courts to order those, but a parenting app is a wonderful tool because then the courts have access to that. You can keep all of the text messages there, and there's no altering them, and there's no pulling them out and using sections of that against you. So the whole thing is right there. You can also upload the receipts for things that you've paid so that you can get reimbursed by your ex. And those are types of things that I really recommend. And of course, in the work that I do, Zoom. Zoom is something where this is where we've got each other face to face. And I like to have that face to face with my clients. And then obviously our telephone. We've got a telephone and you can call me in the case with my clients. Some of my clients have what I call ring through ability. So I'll get a phone call sometimes at 2 a.m. because they're on a ledge and they need help.
yeah, yeah. Well, there's definitely a lot of resources that people need at the right time. What type of resources do you have? Books, checklists? I know that
Yeah,
you're really active on social media and have some really good videos for people to watch.
Yeah, I've got a lot of my TikTok videos, and then as you can see here, this is my show, and so that's where we're actually talking about some of the divorce stuff. And moving into next year, we're going to talk a lot about abuse and the checklist and the information specifically. Like we always want to know our on my clients, I want my clients to know that this is abuse. So I have definitions of narcissistic abuse. I have information about creating a safe location, creating a new email, protection mail is what we call it. I have just all kinds of information as my clients move forward and go through things.
Yeah, no, that's really great. Well, I wonder for anybody who's listening here, how would they like if they were going to engage you in a relationship? What does that look like? It can't be just one meeting, right?
No, now there are coaches that do one meetings and then they handle a lot of stuff through text. I work special with my clients, and the way that I work with my clients is I get they pay a lump sum for a group of months, 3, 6, and 12. And then they have access to me 24/7 via text, but they also have unlimited meetings that they can have with me. Let's say they're going through a hard time and we need to talk every day for 7 days. We can do that at no extra cost to them. I'm also a trained mediator. And so sometimes going into mediation, we need to spend several days in a row going through and prepping for mediation. That's no extra cost to them. I'm also, as a mediator, I'm a restorative mediator, which gives me the ability to not meet with just you, but family members and those people who are supporting you, teaching them how to support you, teaching them how to communicate to the attorney if they're going with you to attorney meetings, all so that we can keep the cost of the attorney fees down so you can afford that attorney.
Yeah, yeah, it's really great. What type of certifications are required to practice in this type of area?
Well, there are people that actually are out there without certifications. I am trained as a certified divorce coach. I'm also trained as a certified high conflict divorce coach, conflictual co-parenting coach, and then, like I said, restorative family mediator. And you don't need to have any of those to practice, but I do recommend if you're going to go get a coach, that you get somebody who's trained because my training is extremely in depth. Like I have to spend, before I go to classes, I will have to spend 4 or 5 hours reading my material so that I have all of that material learned before
Yeah.
class.
Wow, that's really great. Let's talk about some success stories. Um, where you've really, you think about the worst possible situation, right? And then you think about the best possible situation. What types of 180s have you seen where people have just come in broken and they've gotten their lives back?
Wow. Well, there was this guy that I worked with that came in, and I mean, when when he started through the idea of divorce, he was worth over $4 million in property. He was probably closer to 5 million property, cash, everything, and investments. And as he went through that divorce, um, she destroyed rentals and she took $100,000 here, $100,000 there, and just willy-nilly spent it. He didn't have a good attorney. He came out about 1,500,000. That's what he ended up with once, and it was because of the destruction. She hadn't paid taxes, and they had to sell properties to pay taxes. So he came out of that, and his story was that his whole marriage, in fact, his when he went on his honeymoon, he said he was contemplating suicide that day. So his whole marriage was that way, very abusive all the way through. After he got divorced, he was able to leverage property, get money from the bank, fix up that property. Within less than 9 months, he had his property up to about 2,500,000. That's how much work he had done on that. So he was back in. He found the love of his life, and he was able to move away, get away from the stress of where he was living and his ex. And he and his wife just had a magical, I mean, they built a magical life together.
Wow. Total reset button.
Total, total. For him,
And
it was really wonderful because he had never done that. Him and his new wife went to trips to Mexico and just Vegas. They just went and just up and went. They loved life.
I appreciate you being on this podcast. I asked this question the last time, and I wanted to ask it again. If you were going to tell somebody, one thing who's going through this, right? And there's probably a million things you could probably say. What would be the one thing you would tell somebody if they're just really, really struggling and they need help?
Well, the one thing I would tell them is to get a divorce coach. A lot of people, and that's not going to be my whole answer here, but a lot of people think that why do I want to pay an attorney and a divorce coach? Well, even with my fees, the guy I just talked about, I saved him $100,000 going through the finalization of his divorce because we were able to fix everything that his attorney had screwed up and
Yeah.
everything. So now I'm backing up. If you weren't going to hire me as your divorce coach, I would tell you that you need to take care of you. You need to find a place in your space in your mind where you can slow down because the faster you think, the more mistakes you're going to make as you go forward. When you get divorced, we get married with our hearts, but when we divorce, we need divorce with our head. This is a business deal, and that's how we have to handle this.
Yeah. Wow. Well, Tina, thanks so much for being part of the CoTrack Pro podcast. Remind me your website so I can make sure that everybody has it.
It's divorcecoachspecialist.com.
All right, awesome. That's super easy. Well, thanks so much. Hope you have a great day, Tina.
Great. Thank you very much.